these are the people that, and I'm sure we've all heard them, will come into a conversation and say, oh, you think that's bad? Let me tell you what happened to me. Or, at least you have your health. Boy, when this happened, this happened to my aunt and I was sick. And it negates the whole thing, and it actually creates a barrier. Hi, welcome back to our discussion on the empathic leader. Today we're actually going to take time to dig in a little deeper on some concepts that are really core to what we talk about, and that is really defining and understanding the interaction between empathy, sympathy, and compassion, and why these three all work together if you're doing it right. My name is Dr. R, and I really appreciate you being here and hope that you will like and subscribe. This channel is what allows me to dig in a little deeper on my research and really suss out the nuts and bolts of these issues, which I believe are really important, not just to our leadership, but to our society right now. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do this. So let's dig in. We've defined empathy before, but it's always good to redefine something just so that we all have a common ground where we start. So empathy, all right? It's actually Greek. The M part, EM, means in. Pathy or pathos means feeling. So to have empathy means you are in feeling. You are in somebody else's feeling. You are approaching them where they're at. And we've discussed this before, but it's really important to understand that when you do this, you're meeting them on their grounds. You're not coming to them through your lenses, through your experiences, and through your feelings. You're really feeling what they are feeling. And this is really important. A lot of times when we try to relate to somebody else, we can't completely get rid of this bit of ourself. We're seeing it through our experiences. We're seeing it through our lenses. I mean, we live in our brains all the time. So it's kind of just part of who we are as human beings, which is to say that to actually reach out to somebody and understand where they're at through their feelings is kind of countercultural to the way we're raised and what we do, which is the other reason why this is so important. Another way of looking at this is if you're in empathy, you're actually selfless. Think of it this way. If you are keeping your feelings and your ideas and your beliefs, you are coming to them on your terms. But when you reach out to them to actually feel what they feel, you're coming to them on their terms. That's a big difference. Sympathy, in contrast, the sim means with. Pathos, feeling. So you're coming to them with feelings. You're coming to them with your own feelings. And that's exactly what you don't want. These are the people that, and I'm sure we've all heard them, will come into a conversation and say, oh, you think that's bad? Let me tell you what happened to me. Or, at least you have your health. Boy, when this happened to my aunt and I was sick. And it negates the whole thing, and it actually creates a barrier because now you've put your feelings and experiences between you and that person. The other thing with sympathy is that it's generally regarded very negatively. If someone comes to you and they feel that you're just being sympathetic and they're feeling sorry for you, that can be very, very negative because it's kind of like you're above them and you're looking down on what's going on. It adds an element of judgment that isn't necessarily there with empathy. Well, it isn't there with empathy. So, and in fact, they've done studies in healthcare that show that when medical professionals approach patients and they have sympathy, that it's actually taken very negatively by the patients because they feel like there is an element of judgment or pity or this idea that you're kind of looking for them. It just doesn't go well. So this is a big difference. So like with empathy, how we said you approach them on their terms, with sympathy, you're approaching them on your terms. This is a huge difference. And people in general don't necessarily understand what that difference is. So that's why we're taking the time to go into this a little deeper, so that there is an understanding of why they are different, how they are different, and how they can be perceived by the other person. Remember, we talked about communication a couple videos ago as well, and how in communication there's always two sides, right? There's the transmitter and there's the receiver. So if what you're transmitting is not received well, then the communication didn't happen. This is important. So now let's go back to an earlier definition of empathy that we talked about, and that's in that how empathy has three parts. The first is that you have to feel whatever emotion the other person is feeling. Not your emotion, their emotion. And remember, you're always doing this without taking responsibility for them. You're just in it with them, right? On their terms. The second is that you feel some kind of discomfort as a reaction to this feeling what they're feeling. And this is where it takes the courage to feel empathy, because you know you're probably going to be uncomfortable. You're probably going to feel kind of vulnerable and open to that other person, because in order to have that interchange, that communication, you have to be somewhat vulnerable. If you're taking the self out of what you're doing and you're meeting them on their terms, that's vulnerable. So it's going to be uncomfortable. You do it anyway. The third part of this, where you take some kind of action based on that discomfort, that's compassion. So the compassion part of this is where the action is taken. It's where you've taken empathy and made it actionable. Now, in a leadership setting, understand that that doesn't always mean you're going to rush in and fix things for our people, or that you're immediately going to give them whatever they want, or that sort of thing. But it means that you're actually thinking of this in terms of what is better for the wider group. How can this actually help everybody? How is it that I can take this empathy that I'm feeling, use it as a leader, and create a better organization? And that's where the actionability comes in. It's really important to understand the differences between all of these things so that you can adequately use them. So now that we have these definitions set out and we understand kind of the things that are in tandem with empathy, in our next video, we're going to talk about what the antithesis of empathy is and how you can avoid it. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you next time.